Welcome to another video, and today I'm gonna show you tons of different Vyse mechanics. In this video I'll bust some myths, show you some facts, and overall give you a lot of Vyse tips and tricks. Everything you need to know for when you're playing with or against this agent. Also, quickly before we start, apparently last month we got double the amount of subscribers that we usually get, and I just want to welcome all the new viewers. Big thanks for all the support lately, and now let's start the video. Let's start with Vyse Q ability. When you place it down and an enemy walks over this ability, a wall will appear. But here's the thing, it will only appear if an enemy walks over the line, not the wall itself. This means that you can get really close to the line if you want to. Just look at this clip in the background. I'm basically standing on it and there's still no wall. Until I walk over the line, then the wall does appear. Why is this information useful? Well, my friends, if you're lurking for example and you notice that the enemy has placed the wall a little too far, you might be able to sneak very close to it and kill the enemies from an off angle. But now the big question, what does activate the wall? I did some tests and here's what I found out. First of all, abilities won't activate it. So not the Sky Wolf, the Sky Ultimate, Gecko Wingman, Gecko Ultimate. I think you get a point by now. A thing I was more curious about is the Yoru Ultimate. But after testing I found out that also the Yoru Ultimate does not activate the wall. And what even surprised me more is that also the clone doesn't activate it. Same for the Reyna Dismiss, so what we can conclude out of this is that the wall only activates when agents walk over it in their normal state. Over it. This brings up another question. Is it possible to jump over this wall without activating it? With a normal jump, no, it's not possible. However, with something like a jet updraft, it certainly is possible. And here's the reason why. When you place your wall down, you can see a line that indicates how high your wall will be. This line also indicates the top of the hitbox. Makes sense, right? So if my wall is over here and an enemy walks off the boxes, it will activate. However, if an enemy is standing on the boxes and jumps on the last second, they will jump over the hitbox and it doesn't activate. Good to know if you want to be sneaky peeky around the wall. Another thing you need to know about this wall is that the enemies won't be able to destroy it. In fact, nothing can destroy this wall except for the Lotus doors. Not sure why you would place a wall over there though, but it's cool to know. A better door to place your walls in front of are the doors on ascent. The reason, if you place your wall over there and the door is closing, your wall will destroy the door instead of the door your wall. Whoa, that was a big mouthful, but you just look at the background, you know what I mean. This brings up the question though, what about the other Vyse abilities? Well, my friends, the other Vyse abilities will get destroyed by the ascent door. I guess the metals of those abilities are a bit softer. And same for the bind doors. When those are closing, bam, no more abilities. Let's move on and talk about their C ability now. Of course, when you throw it down and you activate it, enemies will take damage when they walk through it. Very annoying, right? But this got me wondering, where is this damage based off? Is it based off how long you walk through it or the distance walked through it? I did some tests and here are the results. When you fully walk through the vines, start to finish, you'll take 54 damage. But now let's slow us down by using a Sage Orb. By doing this, it takes a bit longer to walk through the vines, but in the end, we take the same amount of damage, 54. Okay, one more test, let's now speed us up. Let's do a jet dash through it, and when you do this, you actually take 1 tick less damage. Instead of 54, you take 48 damage, but still, even though it's 1 tick less, I think we can conclude that you will take damage based on distance traveled and not on how long you walk through the vines. And while we're talking about jet, imagine you're standing in the middle of the vines. What if you updraft first and then dash out of it? You would think that you won't take any damage at all, right? Well, my friends, if you do this, you'll actually take 1 tick of damage, what means you will take 6 damage. Oh, that hurts, man. Jet, are you okay? I hope you can get the plaster somewhere. Same idea with the race satchels, by the way, you get -6 damage. Not that big of a deal, luckily. Now it's time to talk about the E ability of Vyse, the Flash. When you place your Flash on a wall, of course it's invisible for all the enemies. However, if the enemy gets within 10 meters of this ability, it certainly will be visible. Cool info, but what does this mean in game? Well, my friends, because the visibility is based on the distance towards the Flash, it's recommended to place this ability as high as possible. The reason, the higher you place your Flash down, the later the enemies will spot it. Makes a lot of sense, right? Because the Flash is further away of the enemies. And not only that, the higher you place it, the more angles it will hit, so place it as high as possible. You can do that by aiming as high as you can, then jump to get a little bit higher and then place it. It's the same mechanic as the Cypher Cam. Another very important thing you need to know about their Flash is that there's a difference in sound when you hit an enemy and when you don't hit an enemy. Just take a listen. This is what you'll hear when you do blind an enemy.
Flashing! Good hit.
And this is the sound if you don't hit anyone.
Blinding!
By recognizing this difference, you can actually use your Flash for info. But now the cool thing, if you place your Flash on one side of the map and you go all the way to the other side of the map, then use your Flash and you hit an enemy, of course you don't hear the difference in sound in your Flash because you're too far away, but you will hear a voice line.
Blinding! Good hit.
And when she says good hit, you know exactly if an enemy is in front of your flash, so it's a pretty nice way to get info around the map. Let's move on and talk about the Vyse ultimate. If the enemy Vyse is using it and you get detained, you won't be able to use your primary gun. This means that you'll still be able to use your pistols or things like a chamber ultimate or race ultimate, just not a Vandal, Phantom or AWP or something. Here are some things you have to know about this ability. The first one is that you won't be able to escape it in the air. You can go as high as you want with an updraft for example, but it really doesn't matter, you will always be detained if you're inside the circle. The only way to dodge this ability is to get out of the circle and then your primary gun doesn't get detained. So make sure to run in time. Another cool thing about her ultimate is that when you get hit and your primary gun gets disabled, you're still able to use the ISO ultimate and then suddenly you will be able to use your gun again. This is a very overpowered counter. I can already hear all the Vyse players screaming, I use my ultimate, why can't he use his gun? This is unfair, my friend, what the Okay, it's time for a cool wall mechanic again. If you plant the spike in a corner over here on Haven for example, a cool thing you can do is to place your wall on the right side of the spike. When you do this and an enemy tries to defuse the spike, the wall will suddenly activate and push the enemy away from the spike. And because the wall is indestructible, the enemy suddenly won't be able to defuse the spike for a while. It's a pretty nasty trick. However, there are two things you need to know about this trick. First of all, never put your wall directly on the spike, because if you do that, the wall will never come up. And the second thing you need to know about this trick is that there's a way to counter it. Like we discussed at the start of this video, the Vyse wall will only go up if an enemy walks over the line. They can shift walk towards the spike and defuse it from the other side of the line. This is only possible if the enemies are careful though. Usually the enemies are sprinting to the spike anyway, so I think that this trick will work more often than not. And since we talk about the pushing mechanic, wouldn't it be cool to push an enemy off the map on Abyss? In theory, yes, this is possible. However, it actually takes some time before the wall comes up, so unless the enemy isn't paying attention or is brain dead or something, pushing an enemy off the map will probably not work. But I know what you're thinking, it's really funny to get an enemy to fall off the map, so if you really want to do that, I would recommend to place it over here, and maybe once the first one is jumping over it, the second one will jump against the wall and fall down. Please send a clip in the Lowlander Discord server if this trick works for you. There's a low chance, but it would be really funny. Another thing you need to know about the wall is that it only extends over the ground. This means that if the ground stops earlier, the wall also stops earlier. This is very different than the Sage wall that will extend further away, so you won't really be able to make one-ways or something, but the wall is already good enough, so no big deal. Now, cool fact about her C ability. A thing you need to know about this ability is that it has the same trajectory as a Viper Molotov. So the Viper players don't need to learn new lineups, they can just use the Viper Molly lineups. However, I don't think this ability is very effective in the post plant, because of course the enemies won't take any damage if they defuse the spike and stand still. And about standing still, a cool thing about these spikes is that you don't have to stand still to avoid taking damage. Huh? What do you mean? Well, my friends, if you stand in the middle of the vines, you can still strafe to the left and the right a little bit. You don't take any damage when you do this, so you can still try to dodge the enemy's bullets. Another cool Vyse mechanic, or maybe more a tricky, is over here on Ascent. Like the Killjoy Molotov, if you stand over here and throw your vines against the lamp, it will land on the boxes. And the cool thing, when you activate it, it will hit the enemies above you. This way the enemies won't be able to destroy this ability, and from hell it just looks very cool. Let's now talk about the Vyse flash again. If you see the flash, of course you can destroy it by shooting on it. But what if Vyse uses her flash? Can you destroy it before it flashes you? And the answer to that is no. When Vyse uses her E, you will 100% get flashed. However, you are able to destroy it before it goes off, but you'll still be flashed. I got a question for you now. When is the Vyse ultimate the strongest? Is it in the first round of the half? Is it in a full buy round? Is it in overtime? Maybe the last round of the half? No, my friends. The Vyse ult is definitely the strongest in Spike Rush. Why, you might ask? Well, in Spike Rush you only have a primary gun, so if you then use your ultimate, the enemies will only be able to use their knife. I don't think this mechanic is very useful to know, because nobody plays Spike Rush, but now you know that Vyse might be the best Spike Rush agent in the game. And this, my friends, this was the last mechanic. If you learned anything, feel free to subscribe, it really helps growing this channel. Thank you so much, and I see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.